Hello and welcome back to Sacred Magic 101. I am Sammy. Today we have a special video for you guys. We will be going over the differences of the Mayan and the Aztec calendar. Are they the same? What are the similarities? And all of that, right? Very soon we will also be having a video going over the Aztec gods. Okay, we're going to be getting all into the Aztec mythology as well as Mayan mythology. So, a lot of people ask if the Aztec and Mayan calendars are the same. So, in simple terms, no. The Aztec and the Mayan calendars are not the same. However, they are related and they share common origins in the earlier Mesoamerican calendar system. The Aztec calendar was a simplified version, right? So it consists of two cycles, a 260-day ritual cycle and a 365-day solar cycle. And if we look at the Mayan calendar, it is more complex, okay? Because the Mayan calendar incorporates these cycles, but it also has a long count calendar which tracks time over vast periods, which the Aztec calendar does not use. Both calendars stem from the earlier Olmec and Toltec calendar traditions, okay? They use the same 260-day sacred cycle. By the Mayans, this is known as the Xoclin, and by the Aztecs, it is known as the Tonapolchalli. Okay, both also use the 365-day solar year. For the Mayans, that is Haab, and for the Aztecs, that is Huichpacalli. Okay, and this calendar literally tracks the seasons. Okay. Now, the Mayan calendar was a lot more complex, right? Because it employs several intertwined cycles. And then change the Aztec calendar was more of like a simplified version. Okay. The significant Mayan long count calendar, which allowed for the recording of vast time spans beyond a 52-year cycle, was not part of the Aztec calendar system. And this is a big reason why they are different. Okay. Then there is something called unlucky days. Okay. The Aztec calendar included a set of 5 unlucky, unnamed days at the end of the 365-day year calendar, and this is called the Nemotemi, and it is dedicated to religious ceremonies. Okay. The Aztec calendar focuses more on a calendrical and a astronomical observations for like agriculture and ritual purposes. And the Mayan system was more elaborate in its cosmological and spiritual tracking. Okay. So, as we can see, they are completely different, right? They have similarities, but they are different. Okay. Now, a few things that you guys need to know about the Mayan calendar is that it dates back to at least the 5th century. And it is still in use in some Mayan communities today. However, another thing you need to know is even though the Mayans contributed to the further development of the calendar, they did not actually invent it. The same system was used by most cultures in pre-Columbian Central America, including those predating the Mayans. Okay. The Mayan calendar consists of the 3 separate corresponding calendars that we've already went over: the long count, Okay, the Sohlakin, which is English translation divine calendar, and the Ha'ab, which is civil calendar. Okay, each of them is cyclical, which means that a certain number of days must occur before a new cycle can begin. The three calendars are used simultaneously, right? Um, the Sukli and the Hab identify the days, but not the years. The long count date comes first, then the Sukli date, and last the Hab date. So like a typical Mayan date would read 13.0.0.0.0.04, right? And it would be Ahu Et Kumku, where 13.0.0.0.0 is the long calendar date. For Ahu is the Suklem date, and Et Kumku is the Hab date, right? So the Hab is a 365-day solar calendar, which is divided into 18 months of 20 days each, and 1 month which is only 5 days long, which is the Uayip. The calendar has an outer ring of Mayan glyphs, so pictures, which represent each of the 19 months. Each day is represented by a number in the month, followed by the name of the month. Each glyph represents a personality associated with the month. The Hab is somewhat inaccurate, as it is exactly 365 days long. An actual tropical or solar year, the time it takes Earth to orbit the sun, takes about 219 days on average. Now, you also have the Gregorian calendar, which that is the calendar that most people around the world are familiar with. Okay, so today with the Gregorian calendar, we adjust this for discrepancy by making almost every fourth year a leap year, when an extra day, a leap day, is added on the 29th of February, right? Then if we take a look at the Sokling, which means the distribution of the days, is also called the divine calendar and the sacred round. It is a 260-day calendar with 20 periods of 13 days. And in it is used to determine the time of religious and ceremonial events. The days in each period are numbered from 1 to 13. Each day is also given a name, a glyph, right? A picture from a sequence of 20-day names. Okay. Now, the long count is an astronomical calendar, which is used to track longer periods of time. The Mayans call it a universal calendar. Each such cycle is calculated to be 2,880,000 days long. And so that is about 7,885 solar years. Okay. The Mayans believe that the universe is destroyed and then recreated, and the start of each universal cycle, right? So at the start of each universal cycle, it's destroyed and then recreated. Okay, this belief is still like very, very popular, right? As it goes on, prophecies about the end of the world, right? Now, the creation date for the current cycle is for Ahu Et Kumku, according to most of the calendars. Now, it could be a little bit different depending on your area. But for example, in very southern Mexico, that is the current, right? Now, how would one go to set a date, right, on a Mayan calendar? So, let's go ahead and explain the how, okay? So the date in the Mayan calendar is specified by its position in both the Soklin as well as the Haab calendars. Okay, this creates a total of 18,980 unique date combinations. Okay, from there, we use those to identify each day within a cycle lasting about 52 years. This period is called the calendar round. Okay, so the date combinations are represented by two wheels rotating in different directions. The smallest wheel consists of 260 teeth, with each one having the name of the days of the Suklim. Okay, the larger wheel consists of 365 teeth and has the name of each of the positions of the Ha'ab year. Okay, now as both of those wheels rotate, the name of the Suklim day corresponds to each Ha'ab position. Okay, the date is identified by counting the number of days from the creation date using the long count calendar, right? So a typical long count date would be something of format like Baktun, Katun, Turn, and then Unialkin. Okay, so Kin equals 1 day. Nal equals 20 kin, which equals 20 days. Tun equals 18 unyal, which equals 360 days. Katun equals 20 tun, which equals 360 unyal, which equals 7,200 days. And then the Baktun equals 20 Katun, which equals 400 tun, which equals 7,200 unyal, which equals 144,000 days. Okay, so the kin, tun, and the katun are numbered from 0 to 19. Tunal are numbered from 0 to 17. And the baktun are numbered from 1 to 13. The long count has a cycle of 13 baktuns, which will be completed at 1,872,000 days. 13 baktuns after 0.0.0.0.0. This period equals 5,125.36 years, and it is referred to as the Great Cycle of the Long Count. Okay, so that is pretty much how the Mayan calendar works. Okay, so something you guys need to know is that the Maya there are still huge populations still today. Some of the regions are Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, and southern parts of Mexico. Okay, they still maintain a very distinctive set of traditions and beliefs, right? Which is all inspired by the combination of pre-Columbian and post-conquest ideas and cultures. So that is something that you guys really need to know when we're speaking about the Maya, right? Now, we're going to go ahead and now jump into more deep into the Aztec calendar as well, right? which I also believe that you guys also need to know how it works as well. So let's go ahead and get into that one so you guys can have a better understanding of how everything is combined and how everything works. Okay, so again, with the Aztec calendar, there's not just one Aztec calendar. Okay, it's more of two independent systems, right? Which we kind of covered earlier in this video. One calendar, called the Expali, has 365 days. It describes the days and the rituals related to the seasons. And might be called the agriculture year of the solar year in some areas, right? The other calendar has 260 days, right? In Nahuatl, is literally the language of the Aztecs. It is called the Tonapalwali, right? Or the day count. So let's go ahead and go over the Tonapalwali, okay? Or the day count calendar, right? This has been called, and it is defined as the sacred calendar because its main purpose is that we use it for a divinatory tool, right? It divides the days and rituals between the gods. Okay. For Aztecs, right? For our mind, right? For our belief, for our culture, this is extremely important. Without it, the world would soon come to an end. Okay. So if we look more deep into like Aztec cosmology, the universe is in a very, very delicate equilibrium. Okay? Opposing divine forces are competing for power. Right? This equilibrium is in constant danger of being disrupted by shifting powers of the gods, of the elemental forces that influence our lives. This struggle cannot be won by any god. The notion that everything ultimately consists of two opposing forces is essential to like the Aztec worldview, right? The world is always on the brink of like going under in a spiritual war, a war of gods competing for supreme power, right? So to prevent this from happening, the gods have given their own space, their own time, their own social groups, all of these things, right, to rule over. The Tonopahali tells us how time is divided among the gods. Okay, so the system of the Tonopahali can be best, like how I can best example you guys is pretty much imagining two wheels that are connected to each other. Okay, one wheel has the numbers 1 to 13 written on it. The second wheel has 20 symbols on it. In the initial situation, number 1, right? So if we combine it with the first symbol, this is the first day of the Tonopali. Now the wheels start moving, and number 2 combines with the second symbol, right? This is the second day. After 14 days, that is an Aztec week, right? Or trecena in Spanish, okay? So it is an Aztec week of 13 days have passed, okay? The wheel with the number shows number 1 once again, okay? The other wheel now will show the 14th symbol, okay? After 260 days, the two wheels have returned to their initial position. The Tonopahali starts all over again, right? So a day tonali, right, in the Tonopahali consists of a number, and a symbol or a day sign. Each day sign is dedicated to a god or an elemental force, the provider of tonali, shadow soul, right? That is the meaning. Life, energy for that day. The 20 day signs and their gods are very, very important. Okay. So, for example, I'm going to give you an example. Okay. We have Sipakli, which will be day sign number 1. And then the god would be Tonosatachwin, right? Or we can do like day sign number 17 would be Olin, and the god would be Oxlop, right? So there you have like a little example of how this works. Okay. Then the nature of a day is also influenced by a force related to its number. Okay. So again, the Teolia, which is spiritual, is for each given day, right? The numerals with their names and all of that. Okay. So like for example, in Nahuatl, the day number 1 would be Se, right? And then the god for that way, for that day, would be Ixtwin. Okay. Another example of that would be like Nahual day number 8 is Chique, right? And then the god would be Tlalok, right? So there's more examples. Okay. Then each trecena, which is a consecutive set of days numbered from 1 to 13, has a god that rule over those days. Okay. Um, and then so like the 20 trecenas have like their associated gods or their elemental forces, right? So for example, um, trecena number 4, right, would be Oxtli, and then the god would be Wehemakototol, right? Or the 20th trecena would be Toshli, and then the god would be Oxiktotlai, right? So these are all things that you have to understand when we are dealing with the Aztec calendar, okay? The 365-day year, or the Oxi, consists of 18 months, okay? Mestli, right? Of 20 days, also called veintenas, right? Plus 5 extra unlucky days, as we had talked about earlier, okay? So all of these things are things that you guys have to be really like aware of when dealing with the Aztec or the Mayan culture, especially dealing with the calendars, right? Because so many people today actually get mistaken, and they think that it is the same calendar. And it is most definitely not the same calendar. They are similar in many ways, but still they are very different, right? Um, so I also want to tell you guys um, an Aztec story, right? So, and it is a story that is kind of like the how I can translate it. The Legend of the Suns is what it translates to. Okay, and I think this is also very important for new beginners to also be aware of and also know. Okay, so I want to go ahead and talk with this with you guys, so you guys are also understanding about this. Okay, so when dealing with creation myths, okay, there is no unitary Aztec creation myth. Okay, but there are several variant tales of how the world came to be. Okay, now one of the primary myths is the legend of the suns. Okay, and The legend of the suns explains the repeated creation and destruction and recreation of the world until finally it assumes um, the form that we know it as today, right? These myths also explain why blood sacrifice was such an integral part of Aztec religion practice. Okay? It was this blood that kept the earth and the sun in existence because the gods who were the earth and the sun demanded um, like to sustain in that form. Okay? Um, there are many important connections between like the Aztec concept of time as it is and as it was, right? It was laid out in like our calendrical system as well as our understanding of the phases of creation, right? This is why I waited to tell you guys this story until after we went over the calendar so you guys could see what I was talking about, right? So within the Aztec culture and timekeeping practices, the number 13 is very sacred, okay? And it literally is taken to represent a form of completeness, right? Um, the number 52 is also very, very, very sacred for us as well, okay? So now you guys are going to get the understanding of the why, okay? The first two suns represent a full and complete space of time, since their spans of 676 years are equal to 13 times 52. Okay? The second two suns, um, these ones are not full and complete in of themselves, right? They represent 7 times 52 and 6 times 52, right? Um, the number 4 has associations with function within the Aztec year count and its reference to the 4 cardinal directions. Okay, we can see these connections play out in the creation myth retold. Okay, which we're going to get into which creation myth I am talking about, right? Um, but it is the Tonacatral and the Tonequetual, right? The male and female aspects of the creator god Ometo, right? So now we're going to get into what that myth is, okay? So legend says that long, long ago, before even time had come to be, there was Ometetol, the dual god, right? And Ometetol was made by the union of the god Tonacatral, the goddess, and Tonacacachwin, right? The Lord and Lady of our sustenance. Okay? So Ometeto was both 1 and 2 at the same time. They came to be out of nothing. And for a time, they were all that was in the whole world of the universe, for nothing else had yet been made. Okay? Tonatiuh and Tonatiuh had 4 children. There was Red Sipetotec, the flayed god, god of the seasons and the things that grow upon the earth. Then there was Black, the Scalapoca, smoking mirror, god of the earth. Okay. Then there was White, Quetzalcoatl, plum serpent, god of air. And then there was Blue, Huitzilopochtli, hummingbird of the south, god of war. The godchildren lived in the 13th heaven with their parents, Of these children, the Skelapoka was the most powerful. Together, the four children of the dual god decided that they would like to create a world and some people to live in it. It took them several tries before the world became the way we know it as today, because the gods fought over who should be the sun and rule the earth. The first attempt at creation was made by Quetzalcoatl and as well with Huitzilopochtli, right? First, they made a fire, which was the sun, but it wasn't big or strong enough to give much light or heat, as it was only half of the sun. After they made the sun, Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli made a man and a woman. They called the woman Oxomokov, okay? And the man, they called him Sipakatonal, right? The gods told the man and the woman what work they were to do. The man was to be a farmer, while the woman's duty was to spin thread and weave cloth. The gods gave the woman the gift of maize, okay? Some of the grains were magical and could cure illnesses or help foretell the future. Together, Oxumoko and Sipacotanal had many children who became the Masehuales, the farmers who worked the land. Even though there was already a half son, and even though there were already a man and woman, the gods had not yet created time. This they did by making days and months. Each month had 21 days, and when 18 months had gone by, this made 360 days. And that spanned the gods and called it a year. Okay? After there was a son, a man and a woman, and time, the gods created the underworld, which was called Mictlan. Then Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli made two other gods to rule over this place. They were called Mixacacauchihuatli and Mixacatat-al-Awal, the Lord and the Lady of Mictlan. Okay? When all of this was done, Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli created some water, and in it they placed a giant fish. The fish was called Sipakatali, right? And the earth was made of the body of the fish. Oxomoko and Sipacotonal had a son named Pilisek-Achawataili. The gods looked upon him and saw that he had no wife. At that time, there was a goddess of beauty and young woman called Oxi Quetzal, flower Quetzal feather. The gods took some of Oxi Quetzal's hair, and from it they made a woman to be Huitzilopochtli's wife. The gods looked at all the things they had created, and they were not satisfied with them, especially with the sun, which was too weak to give much light. Tezcatlipoca thought about how to make the old sun brighter, but then he thought of a better idea. He turned himself into the sun. This new sun was much better than the old one. It was a whole sun, and it gave enough light to the world the gods had made. This was the beginning of the first age of the world, the age of the first sun. The gods also wanted more beings in their new world. They made a race of giants who ate nothing but pine nuts. The giants were very large and very strong. So strong were these giants that they could uproot trees with their bare hands. So for a time, Tesolipoca shone brightly over the world the gods had made. But after this world had existed for 13 times, 52 years, or 676 years, Quetzalcoatl thought his brother had reigned as the sun for long enough. He took his club and struck Tesolipoca with it, sending him plummeting down, way down into the waters that encircled the world. Okay? Then Tesolipoca was very angry that Quetzalcoatl had done this. He rose up out of the water in the shape of a giant jaguar, and in this shape he roamed about the whole earth. The jaguar hunted all the giants and devoured every one of them. Once all the giants had been eaten, Teslecopoca rose back up into the heavens, where he became the constellation jaguar, Ursa Major. Right? The second age of the world was the age of the second sun. This was the age of wind. Quetzalcoatl made this world, and Quetzalcoatl was the sun during this age. The Machacuales lived in this age, eating nothing but pine nuts. The second age also lasted for 676 years, until Tezcatlipoca took his revenge on his brother. Tezcatlipoca came to the world in a blast of wind so great that Quetzalcoatl and the Machacuales were blown away. Although some of the Machacuales escaped the blast, these turned into monkeys and they ran away into the jungles to live. After that time of the second sun was complete, the god of rain, whose name was Kalok, he who makes things sprout, became the sun and ruler of creation. His age is the age of the third sun. This age lasted for 7 times, 52 years or 364 years. During this age, the people ate the seeds of the plants that grew into water. But again, Quetzalcoatl destroyed this world. He brought down a rain made of fire, and all of the people were turned into birds. After Quetzalcoatl entered the region of Calok, he gave the world to Calok's wife. Her name was Chalchicolique, right? Which means jade skirt woman, and she was to rule. Chalchicolique was the goddess of rivers, streams, and all manner of waters, right? All forms of water. She was the sun for 6 times, 52 years or 312 years. This fourth sun age was a time of great rain. It rained so long and so hard that there was a great flood that covered the earth. The flood washed away the Machacuales, turning them into all fish. After the flood was over, the sky fell down and covered the earth so that nothing could live on it. The gods looked upon the world they had made and saw how it had been destroyed by their quarreling. Quetzalcoatl and Tesolipoca made peace with one another and went down to rebuild the world. The gods each went to one end of the world, okay, where they transformed themselves into great trees. With their mighty tree limbs, they pushed the sky back up into its place, and they held it there. The god Tonatiuhtli, father of Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca, looked down and saw the brothers had ceased their fightings and had worked together to mend what their anger had broken. Tonakachakli therefore gave the brothers the starry heavens to rule, and he made a highway of stars for them to use as they traveled. This highway is the Milky Way. Then the gods created new people to walk upon the earth. Once the sky had been put back into its place, Tesilepoca took flint and used it to make fires. These fires lit the world, for the old sun had been destroyed in the flood and the new one had not been made yet. Also, there were no people, for the giants had all been devoured. And so the people had all been turned into monkeys, birds, and fish. So Tezcatlipoca met with his brothers to take counsel about what to do. Together they decided that a new sun would have to be created, but this would be a new kind of sun. It would be one that ate humans' hearts and drank human blood. Without sacrifices to feed it, the sun would cease and would not shine more. And the world would return to darkness once more. So, the gods made 400 men and 500 women, and these were to be food for the new sun, right? Some say that Quetzalcoatl and Coloc each wanted their sons to become the fifth sun, and that these gods each took their sons to one of the great fires that had been kindled. Quetzalcoatl's son had been born without a mother. The god threw his son into the fire first, and he became the new sun. His son rose out of the fire and went into the sky, where he still is to this day. Coloc waited until the fire had nearly burned itself out. He took his son, whose mother was Chalchihuatlicue, and threw him into the glowing embers and ashes. Tlaloc's son rose out of the fire and went into the sky as the moon. Because Quetzalcoatl's son went into the blazing fire, he became a creature of fire that glows with a light that is too bright to look at. But because Tlaloc's son went into the embers and ashes, his light is dimmer and his face is splattered with ashes. And this is how night became divided from day, and why the moon and the sun crossed the sky in different ways and along different paths. Another one of our stories is how the sickly god Nanasotwin willingly sacrificed himself to be the fifth son. The gods had gathered at the great city. The great city was named Teotihuacan, right? To discuss how they might make a new sun to replace the old one that had been destroyed in the flood. One of them needed to jump into a bright bonfire and then rise into the sky. Nanhatsin, god of disease, whose name means pool of sores, came forward. I will do this thing, he said, even though my body is diseased and bent, and even though my skin is covered with leprosy. The other gods laughed at him. They said, you silly fellow, you are sickly and weak. You will not have the courage to jump into the fire. Let someone else become the sun. Then Tezcatlipoca, the one from the place of the conch, came forward. He was a most wealthy god, right? Well made in his body and well dressed with all manner of like gold and feather ornaments. He said, I will do this thing, for it would be better that a healthy god make this sacrifice than a sickly one. The other gods agreed that it should be like this, and it caused a great fire to be kindled. While this was being done, Tezcatlipoca and Nanhatsin retire to places where they might fast and prepare offerings to purify themselves so that they would be worthy to become the new sun. Tetragrammaton prepared offerings that were made of the finest things, of jade and quetzal feathers, and balls of gold. Non-Heswe offering were humble reeds and like the spines of the Magick cactus. At the appointed time, Quetzalcoatl and the other gods gathered around the fire. The wealthy god, dressed in his best finery, strode up in a great blaze with its searing heat. He made as though to throw himself in, but at the last minute he balked and walked away. Again he tried, but he could not bring himself to jump into the flames. He tried again and yet again, but each time his courage failed him. At the fourth time he walked away from the bonfire and from the other gods, ashamed that he had not been able to turn himself into the sun as he had promised he would do. The other gods wondered how they would make a new sun since Tecochacal had failed to jump into the fire. But all was not lost. Nanhawatzin had not forgotten his offer to become the new sun. And he had also fasted and purified himself so that he might be a fitting sacrifice. The sickly god stepped forward, dressed in garments made of paper, and walked straight up to the raging fire. He stared into the heart of the blaze for just a moment, then threw himself into the very heart of the flames. Nanhawatsin's hair was ablaze, his clothing was ablaze, his skin crackled with the heat of the flames that licked all around his body. Tecoatl saw the courage of this sickly Nanhawatsin and was deeply ashamed. So he stepped forward and jumped into the flames with Nanhawatsin. An eagle and a jaguar had been watching the sacrifice too. They saw the courage of Nanhawatsin and of Tecoatl, and so they joined the gods, throwing themselves among the flames. This is why the eagle's feathers are tipped with black, and why the jaguar is covered with black spots. And this is also why the Aztecs created the orders of the eagle and the jaguar to honor their bravest warriors. After the eagle and the jaguar had thrown themselves into the fire, the other gods waited to see what would become of Nanhawatsin and Tecoatl. Slowly, light began to rim the world. The gods looked all around, wondering where the source of the light was. Then suddenly, Nanhawatsin burst forth over the eastern horizon, covering the world with the brightest light. His sacrifice transformed him from the lowly, sickly leper god into a new sun god, Olin Tontiwal, whose name means movement of the sun. But Tecoatl had also been transformed by this sacrifice, and shortly after, Nanhawatsin rose into the sky, and so did Quetzalcoatl. And now the gods had a new problem, for there was not one but two suns in the sky, and the light they made together was too bright for anyone to see anything. One of the gods snatched up a rabbit that was nearby and flung it into the face of Tecoatl. The rabbit hit Tecoatl so hard his light was dimmed. That was how the moon was created, and the shape of the rabbit was now permanently marked on his face. Then the gods rejoiced, for now they had both a sun and a moon. But their joy was short-lived, for Tonatiuh refused to move from his place in the sky until all the gods had sacrificed themselves to him. The other gods grew angry and refused to do these things, but Tonatiuh was steadfast. He would not move until he had drunk the blood of the other gods. Kashabalapanitchertatli, god of dawn, who is the morning star, said, I will stop Tonatiwi. I will save you from having to be sacrificed. So he threw a draft, like a big dart, and it's like a pointy thing with an arrow, okay, at Tonatiwi with all his might, but he missed. Tonatiwi threw a dart of his own back at Morningstar, hitting him in the head. This changed Clackatamapanichipli into its Lokanale Kui, the curved obsidian. Okay, the god of coldness, frost, and obsidian. And this is why it is always cold right before the sun rises. The other gods realized they could no longer refuse what Tonatiwi demanded. They came before him with bare breast, and Quetzalcoatl cut out their hearts with a sacrificial knife. Once the gods had been sacrificed, Quetzalcoatl took their clothing and ornaments and wrapped them into sacrificial bundles. These sacred bundles were then worshipped by people. They were drenched with the blood of the gods. Tonatiuh began to move across the sky, and he has done so ever since. And this was the birth of the fifth sun, the sun under which all life lives to this day. But still, the people offer blood and hearts to the sun to ensure that he is satisfied and to keep him on his sacred path across the sky. There are more legends, and we will be going over them in another video. I really hope you enjoyed some of our Aztec legends, and I hope you also have a better understanding now of the difference between the Mayan calendar and the Aztec calendar. Once again, thank you for joining our channel here at Sacred Magic 101. Again, I am Sammy. If you like this video, feel free to give this video a like, and also subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell. That way you can always get notifications when our new videos are uploaded. Thank you and have a great week.